Welcome back, you hero Goldberg. Today we'll be talking about an important subject. It might offend some of you. If that's the case, shut up and eat your Pringles. We have to be serious. So what I'll do, I'm going to address my perspective and what I believe, and then we'll go into more of the devil's advocate, because it's important to keep ourselves honest, not just evolve into the hive mind, that's just what we believe mentality. So, as far as my upbringing was concerned, I was one of the first out of the kids to actually seriously consider going to university, and pretty much no oversight on the parental side. They were laissez-faire, so you have to figure stuff out for yourself, which is good and bad. But I got into a decent state school. I always felt when I was younger I had to work much harder than other people for good grades. Like I'd have to start sooner and all that. Could have just been a perception thing, however. But I got into a good state school. I was getting, nice outcomes, although I kind of compressed the degree because I was not so much risk averse, cost averse, debt averse, and finished very quickly. But it came to the end and I said, well, I could do another semester. That'll lead to a double major. I'll have a more effective relationship with this professor. Academic, you naughty boys and girls. And that will lead to applying to this dual master's study abroad thing that was really exciting. I mean, this subject matter, I really wanted to do it. But then it came to, it's going to be $5,000 for the one semester, $60,000 to $70,000 worth of debt to do this program. Is it really necessary? At the time, I'd started listening to not yet Aaron Clarey, but people with similar mindsets, and so I went, let me just join the military 4 years, I'll use the GI Bill, and they'll take care of the entire matter, and I can go to graduate school. That was the plan, at least. But as fate would have it, I didn't get into the military for medical reasons. Not AIDS, not HIV, it was vision-related, not pink eye. So that led to a series of false starts, but eventually I found my way to my current position, which, I make solidly over $100,000. I have a house, which I've been able to do some work on, very manageable mortgage. I have 2 used, older Japanese cars, finally got away from I'm a patriotic American, you gotta buy them. In fact, I heard that Alan Jackson, buy me a Mercury, and that happened to me, but it was buy me a Mercury and drive nowhere, because that's how bad it was. One might argue, of course, because of the flexibility of my job I've done in the last couple of years, extensive reading, research, writing, publishing, I've taken a lot of online courses, you could say, oh, that's equivalent to an advanced master's or even a permanent head damage program. But it's not sanctioned by bourgeois liberal society. So as far as they're concerned, your normie resume is coming up lacking. I don't have a high status job. I make good money. I enjoy what I do for the most part, but I don't have a high status. You go to the thankfully rare extended family get-together. Oh, what company are you simping for and spending most of your life laboring under? Oh, Acme Incorporated. Oh, that's fantastic, brah. I don't go through that. But there is a trade-off, and we'll get into it just a little bit here. More recently, I figured I could cope by doing an online master's degree just to shore up my illustrious normie resume, and so I took a gander around. Now, you can select University of North Georgia, Minnow State, and you might get one for like 10, 11 grand. It's not too bad, although those are like, unknown schools for the most part. But these dirt-ass poor southern states are such bastards. If you're not a resident, they'll try to charge you 25, 30K for a master's because, out-of-state tuition. That's something that typically doesn't happen. Like under the EU system, this is unique. With the European Union, I believe they can't charge you a higher rate because you're not from that country. That's at least one of the reforms I'd seen in the class I was taking. But at any rate, Indiana University, the online consortium, most of their master's programs are maybe 450 credit hour. But if you get into the more technical ones, or certainly like public administration, well ranked, although you don't get all the networking benefits as much online that you would in person. And it's 1,400 per credit hour. Now remember, kids, most university courses are at least 3 credit hours for one class. So you can do the math on that. Elite programs, 1,500, 2,000 per credit hour. It's insane. This is 40, 50K for an online degree that's worth something as far as rankings are concerned. The worst I saw was American University, not an Ivy League, mind you, Masters of International Relations. And you've got one of the sample videos, this geriatric woman wearing, I kid you not, rubber monster finger puppets trying to explain global power dynamics and relations. This is a program where you have to pay over $70,000 for an online piece of paper. That's how brutal it's become to prove your worth to society, right? And so you ask yourself, is it really worth all that? Should you be paying it in? I don't personally believe, because I have a hard time accepting it, even if you say, well, it leads to that. It's a means to an end, but just in principle, it seems wrong. Indeed, I realize this because Coursera has this like online Master of Science in Management from University of Urbana, drunk on champagne. And if you actually break down that program, which is considered a baby MBA, about $11,000 tuition, the course is required. If you simply pay for Coursera Plus, which is like $60 a month, unlimited, cancel anytime, you can knock out the entire curriculum and maybe spend in the course of a year, what would that be? Maybe $700 versus $11,000. This is the focus of a book. I read this one, Don't Pay for Your MBA. It was really fascinating. She explained how you could do it. Now, you're not going to have that title, but you're going to have the knowledge. For me, I really don't care, because whether I'm doing business or I'm doing like tech courses, it can all add into the direction I'm going. And I don't need to be supporting a very corrupt system. You can do it on your own time and pace. That's one thing. I've never liked listening to teachers and guidelines, even though I got good grades. I found it really obnoxious. So MOOCs, while they're not perfect, are useful in that sense if you just want to do your own thing. So you take that all together, and this is where we have to start pivoting, because if you listen to a guy like Aaron Clare, only do STEM or healthcare or do a trade. Now, a guy who has that mindset, this kind of individualistic defiance towards the major system, he might have a small plumbing company, let's say, and maybe that could be handed down to his son if he's actually pro-natalist. Or you could teach English in a third world country and make a decent living. You could do coding remotely and make a nice living. But these are not really roles that are going to translate necessarily or likely into influence in the meritocratic elite structure of an advanced country. This is where people are going to get offended, but we still have to, we can't be dishonest. We can't just, go, oh, no, we don't want to hear that, because it is relevant and has implications going forward for everyone. Sorry to use Chomsky here, it's just for illustrative purposes. What I've noticed, not so much with the illegal immigrants, but let's say the H-1B types or the ones who came legally, first, second generation, the parents will take on considerable debt, whether or not the kid is able to get a full ride scholarship, or maybe they have to go to medical school and they're going to assume some liability from that. But they'll do it and they'll say it's okay because that allows their kid to get the networking, get access to this meritocratic elite at some level, be relevant. These are the types that you'll see. They're always doing another graduate degree. They're always doing something more related to education. And then in their free time, they're volunteering for like the local Red Cross, some community board, Rotary International, because it's about connections, being active in the church, always furthering this portfolio and dynasty of sorts, which you might say, yeah, but you're just simping for a corporation or you're simping for the government. In some sense, yes, but that means that their kids are going to have this bountiful offering or inheritance where the kids will go to a private school and the cycle continues, as opposed to laissez-faire, do what you want, and then, you know, think of Amy Chua, right? When she came out with that book, The Tiger Mom, and all the white, middle class suburbanites were like, "Oh my God, how can you treat kids that way?" Yeah, that's why your child is getting, she's working as a cosmetologist. Whereas the girls in that case, in that family, the professors, Amy Chua and Jed Rubenfeld, are doing quite well, at least the last time I checked. It's totally different worlds. And you can have this averse reaction and say it's a bunch of nonsense because, oh, the system's collapsing. You can be a collapsitarian, and you might be correct. But what if the collapse takes a long time? Or what if it's a managed decline and you don't really see it in your lifetime? Now, if you're just a going galt guy who wants to get out and enjoy the decline, you're okay. But if you have kids and you take them out to your homesteading in Montana and that doesn't happen, or you just kind of let them do whatever because the system is going to collapse, do you have a similar thing that you can give to them? You might have economic resources, like myself. I'm doing fine economically, but not high status, not super well connected. So that's the fundamental difference. Because as you see it, these people, which, of course, a lot of them Care Bears, increasingly communist Chinese, Indians, or entering this meritocratic elite, which is why you see with the security state, it went from, you patriotic boys fighting these radical Muslims, to, oh yeah, you guys, you cream cheese guys are the biggest threat. Masculine men are the threat. All this stuff happens because you've seeded the power structure. The elites are increasingly people who have nothing in common with you and are going to try to rule over you in many different ways. So that's significant. We can say, oh yeah, it's a bunch of BS, man. But that's the difference between the person who's looking at the TV shaking their fist and the person who's making the decisions. You remember that Taylor Swift song, "And I can see you simping, but no one's listening." Amazing rendition, as you all know, my singing ability. It's just to point out that we might be so wrapped up in our perspective, which in one sense could be correct, but that doesn't necessarily mean the system, because we want it or expect it to, doesn't mean it's coming apart, and it doesn't mean that there aren't people who are being successful and rising and may be able to use their influence and their power and their wealth against those who, are like premature triumphalists. Oh, it's all over. So let me know what you think. Should you break off from the system, or should you try to actually do well within it?